Hello and welcome back to Switch and Lever. So today we're going to do something a little bit special. We're going to take some material I shot almost 5 years ago, splice it together with new material like what you're watching now, and let's see if we can make a worthwhile video. Stay tuned, and by the end of this video you should know how to make your own leather-bound notebooks using simple materials and easy tools. These things make really great gifts as well and give you an opportunity to reuse material which may otherwise be discarded. So, let's do it! First thing you're obviously going to need is paper. I'm using some rather nice, thick and smooth copy paper, which is one of my favorite surfaces to sketch on, but you can literally use any paper you like to give your notebooks whichever flair you like. For this, I've made the pages slightly oversized to what the final page in the notebook will be, but we will get to exactly why a little bit later. For the cover of the notebook, we're going to use leather for that premium feel. I know what you're thinking, leather is expensive, and normally you would be right, but in this case we're going to use reclaimed leather samples. If you go to any furniture store, you may notice that they have material samples available for their different furniture, and many of those samples happen to be leather. What you may not know is that these samples get replaced reasonably often due to the change in whatever is in fashion. If you ask nicely, it's not uncommon that you can get one of these sample binders of leather for free, or for a very cheap cost, as they literally would end up in the trash otherwise. One added benefit, in my opinion, is that these samples often have various stamping or random holes in them, adding to the look of the final notebook. Bear in mind that this is most often chromed tan leather, meaning that it's soft and supple. So while you can't really use it for molding or making things like knife sheaths or holsters from it, it makes it ideally suited for what we will do. Take your stack of papers, however many you want to use, and place them into your folded up leather. Though I would recommend a stack of not more than 4 mm or so, as you want to be able to make your way through them with relative ease. Don't worry if everything doesn't match up perfectly, as long as you get the paper in as far into the folded leather as possible. Place this stack of leather and paper in between two pieces of wood, slightly larger than the notebook itself, with the spine of the notebook sticking out. Clamp this wood, leather and paper sandwich together with some heavy-duty spring clamps to ensure that it cannot move around. Using a thin awl or a big needle, mark out a series of evenly spaced holes a few millimeters from the spine of the notebook. When marked, use the same awl to punch holes straight through the leather and paper, preparing holes for stitching the notebook together. We do this as we cannot directly punch a thin needle through all this material, so we need the holes to be there beforehand. For my notebooks, I use a reasonably heavy-duty waxed linen thread for stitching. The wax helps the thread to stay in place, and the thread is heavy-duty enough not to break while carrying it in your pockets or bags. Prepare a length of thread about 4 times the length of the spine of your notebook. You will obviously also want a needle, and since you already have the holes punched, you can choose a tapestry needle with a rounded point. Personally though, I find a curved needle works best, as it's easier to pass through the holes multiple times with it. Either way, you want to choose as thin of a needle as you can get away with, considering the thread you've chosen. What we will do here is a variant of Japanese bookbinding, which is a very easy binding method to get into if you're just starting out. We will start from the center hole you made, pulling half of the thread through so the other half is sticking out on the other side of the notebook. Then directly go over the spine and in through the same hole again. As you can see, having a pair of pliers is very helpful in helping the needle through the holes in the spine. From here we will go through the next hole and repeat this exact procedure. Through once, loop around the spine and go through again. Then onto the next hole and the next and the next, until you reach the end of the line of holes. Once at the end, we simply make our way back through all the holes again, this time only in the spaces without thread, not looping around the spine. Once you reach the middle of the spine again, remove the needle from the thread and pick up the second half of the thread you left over and repeat this entire process on the other half of the notebook. When you come back and the two ends meet, you can join them with a simple knot. If you're using a wax thread like me, that knot is highly unlikely to ever come undone during normal use. There is also a way to make the knot inside the notebook, which means that you don't see it from the outside, but that leaves a lump inside the notebook of which I'm not terribly fond. It does, however, give you a slightly cleaner look to the notebook itself. So now we have a notebook with unmatching edges and a really unneat appearance. While you could simply just grab a ruler and a box cutter and trim the edges, if you have access to a proper paper cutter, you could slice the edges off cleanly and neatly, which is exactly what I will do. This is also the reason why we did not loop the thread around the top and the bottom sides of the notebook, as is more traditional in Japanese bookbinding, as it gives us the option to trim the sides properly without cutting the thread. While this does take care of the flushing up of the sides of the paper and leather, it leaves the corners quite sharp. If this is a look you're going for, you can finish right here. But personally, I like rounded corners, and I think they give more of a professional feel to the finished notebook. You could get a punch cutter for rounded corners, but unless you're planning to make a lot of notebooks, this may be a bit much of an investment. You can achieve almost as good of an effect using a pair of metal cylinders or even washers, a clamp and a utility knife. Simply take your two cylinders and flush them up to the corner of either side of the notebook and clamp them in place. Now you can use them as a guide and slice off the corner of the notebook following the cylinders around. This will give you a very neat looking and uniform corner, which you would not get if you did it entirely by hand. There you go, now you have a neat leather-bound notebook you can sit and make some amazing sketches in while waiting for your next tall dark stranger to walk into your life. Or why not use it to design circuit boards? Circuit boards which you could later have made through PCBWay. PCBWay is one of the biggest PCB manufacturers in the world with extremely fast turnaround times and prices as low as $5 for 10 double-sided circuit boards. Take the chance and make your next electronics project a reality with PCBWay. Supporting Switch and Lever sponsors also helps this channel to grow and to bring you new and exciting material on a regular basis. If you followed this video and made some notebooks yourself, I would love to see them. Leave a comment below, subscribe if you haven't, and tag me on social media. Also, join the Switch and Lever crew and pick up some sweet merchandise by clicking the link here or in the description. Until next time!